Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Rajastham Deepa Balibhi Sambrita Shesha Mangalai Abhiyur Mrishta Kanyascha Mrishta Kundala Manditaha Prajastham Deepa Balibhi Sambrita Shesha Mangalai Abhiyur Mrishta Kanyascha Mrishta Kundala Mandita Prajastham Deepa Balibhi Sambrita Shesha Mangalai Abhiyur Mrishta Kanyascha Mrishta Kundala Mandita. As the king entered the gate of the city, all the citizens received him with many auspicious articles, like lamps, flowers, and yogurt. The king was also received by many beautiful, unmarried girls, whose bodies were bedecked with various ornaments, especially with earrings which collided with one another. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Offerings of natural products, such as betel nuts, bananas, newly grown wheat, paddy, yogurt, and vermilion, carried by the citizens and scattered throughout the city, are all auspicious paraphernalia according to Vedic civilization. For receiving a prominent guest like a bridegroom, king, or spiritual master. Similarly, a welcome offered by unmarried girls who are internally and externally clean and are dressed in nice garments and ornaments is also auspicious. Kumari, or unmarried girls, untouched by the hand of any member of the opposite sex, are auspicious members of society. Even today, in Hindu society, the most conservative families do not allow unmarried girls to go out freely or mix with boys. They are very carefully protected by their parents while unmarried. After marriage, they are protected by their young husbands, and when elderly, they are protected by their children. When thus protected, women as a class remain an always auspicious source of energy to man. As the king entered the gate of the city, all the citizens received him with many auspicious articles like lamps, flowers, and yogurt. The king was also received by many beautiful unmarried girls, whose bodies were bedecked with various ornaments, especially with earrings, which collided with one another. We are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21, entitled Instructions by Maharaj Prithu, Text 4. Prithu Maharaj, previous to this chapter, was performing very awesome Aswamedha Yagyas. To perform one, you had to be the undisputed ruler of the entire world. With such immense wealth, with such qualified Brahmins, if there was even a single mistake in the execution of such yajna, which was something that lasted for not just a few minutes, very extended, it could be disaster. No one but an extremely qualified person who had such power over the world could even attempt such a yajna. Why would someone do it? For a noble king like Prithu Maharaj, it was to invoke auspiciousness and prosperity to all the citizens of the world. Bhagavad Gita explains, everyone exists by eating food grains. Food grains come from rain. Rain comes from the performance of yajna. So materially, spiritually, emotionally, everything prospers when the king is not only is leading the citizens by his example in invoking the presence of the Lord in every aspect of life. But we read that Indra, he had the universal record of performing such yajnas. And Prithu Maharaj was about to break that record. He was going to tie it and then break it, and nothing could stop him. Now for Prithu Maharaj, he didn't care about being a champion. He was concerned with doing everything he possibly could for the welfare of all of the citizens and for the world. Praja. Citizens means not only every type of human being, but every animal, every reptile, every fish, every tree, every plant, every insect. It's the duty of the king on behalf of God to elevate and enlighten everyone toward pure devotional service and to protect them physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So he was performing these yajnas for this purpose. Ultimately, the purpose of yajna is to please Krishna. When Krishna is pleased, when you water the root of the tree, every part of the tree is naturally satisfied. Krishna is the root. Janmad yasha yataha. So by satisfying Krishna through the conscious intentions of these yajnas, with these sacrifices, Krishna, the devatas, everyone bestows all good fortune upon the world. This is a previous yuga. Kali Yuga, there's so much strife, drought, earthquakes, famine, floods, epidemics, disease, war, racial discrimination, caste discrimination, egoism, drug addiction, alcoholism. We can speak for days just with the list of the problems of Kali Yuga. Why was Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga different? It was like similar to a heavenly planet. Things were so nice. Yeah, every now and then demons would come to disturb things, but in those previous yugas, God would come right there and make sure the demons didn't bother anyone. It was because these yagas were being performed. Because people were being exposed to such a pure environment. Sinful people were rare. Nobody wanted to be sinful. Being pious was fun. And the world was, and Mother Earth was providing abundantly everything. We see, because of King Vena, Mother Earth was withdrawing because he wasn't pleasing God. He was competing with God. He was spreading irreligion. There was a small gap. But when Prithu Maharaj came, he had such power that he induced Mother Earth to provide all prosperity to everyone. And how is that done? By pleasing Krishna. When Vishnu is pleased, then everything else has to be auspicious. In the age of Kali, the only sacrifice that people could properly perform is the chanting of the holy names. If people would sincerely take to it with the proper consciousness, then the world could be like that, even in the age of Kali. But it's very difficult. The Kali's benediction is it's so bad that when people do take to the chanting of the holy names, they take shelter. Yes? You can be complacent, but when Kali starts getting at you, then you understand it's a desperate necessity to find the shelter of the Lord. So here we find two people. There's Prithu Maharaj, who's selflessly the servant of all of the citizens, who's trying to please God so that the Lord will bestow auspiciousness for everyone's enlightenment. And you have Indra, the universal champion, who has the record of the most yagyas of this type, and who's very proud, because he worked very hard. It's very difficult to do these yagyas, and he worked hard all his life to get that record. And Prithu Maharaj was about to surpass him. Now, many people thought that Indra was doing it for the welfare of everyone, and he's a devotee. He was. Certainly, Indra wasn't just doing these yagyas because he would be the champion. He was doing the yagyas for the welfare of the universe, because he's also a king. But Karma Mishra Bhakti means that along with your service to the Lord, he wanted to please Vishnu, he wanted to help the citizens. But the tendency is, when you start getting results, and you start getting power, and you start getting influence, and fame, and all of these other things, Maya's trick is you become attached to that. You start identifying with that position that you have. rather than being the servant of the servant of the servant, which is all we ever are and all that we ever could be. Everything else is an illusion. So Indra, somehow or other, devotee, very empowered devotee. Indra is very dear to Krishna. No doubt about it. Krishna goes through great efforts to save him whenever he goes off. Yes? When you become egoistic and offensive, does Krishna come and lift Govardhan Hill for 7 days with the little finger of his left hand just to curb your false pride? That's how special Indra is. Krishna did all that. Krishna could have killed him, like he killed Aristasura, just throwing him down on the ground. Could have sent his Sudarshan Chakra to sever Indra's head. But he did all this to clean Indra's heart, because Indra's a devotee. But still, we find that Indra is somehow or other caught up in the passion of the false ego. He's doing things for the pleasure of Krishna. He's doing things for the welfare of his subjects. But somewhere mixed in, there's also some selfish pride. And the more you get, and the more you get, if you're not very, very careful, that selfish pride grows with your success. Which is actually just the opposite of bhakti. Bhakti means, as we're making spiritual advancement, our false pride diminishes and ultimately disappears. Amanina manadena. A devotee's joy. This is how we can tell we're making advancement. Deep advancement. In the beginning stages, we can tell we're making advancement because we're getting our rounds done and because we're following the regulative principles and like that. But on a more subtle and higher level, these things are always there. We can understand our advancement by how we're actually taking joy in giving respect and honor to others. And how we're not taking joy in being respected and honored ourselves, even if it comes. If it comes, we don't take it. We accept it on behalf of Guru and Krishna. And we give it to them. We know it's not for me. That's a Vaishnava. But it's a temptation. Just like sex attraction is very strong. For a man and a woman to be alone together, if they're not meant to have such a relationship, then it's a very strong inclination to enjoy that. Is it not? Well, pratishta, the desire for distinction and adoration, is considered to be subtle sex life. And when you're being glorified and you have fame and people are honoring you, it's a very, very difficult temptation to not enjoy. Very difficult. Because we're so vulnerable. We're so addicted to it. Ramananda Rai, for him to be massaging young ladies was not a problem because he had no desire. But for anyone else, it would have been disastrous because some desire is there. So as long as we have some desire for adoration and distinction, when we get it, it's a very, very craving, temptation to enjoy it and to hold on to it. Because once you start enjoying it, you have to hold on to it. This is a test. When something's taken away from you, if you're not attached to it, it doesn't matter. But when it's not given to you and it hurts, or it's agitating or disturbing, that means you were enjoying it, you were attached to it. So this is a very critical lesson for all devotees, that Krishna once again is showing through His Holiness Indra. Indra was attached. He worked so hard. He had the record. You know, today sportsmen break records, cricket players, or football players, they break records, and it's a great thing, it's in the news. But comparatively, this type of record, it's very awesome. So Indra started to sabotage Pritu's yagyas by stealing the horses. In every possible way he could, he was trying to sabotage it so he would not break his record. And he became in such a fever of doing it. He lost so much. Bhagavad Gita explains that dhyayato vishayan pungsang, that when there's this attraction, eventually you lose your intelligence. He was so addicted to this pratishta that he lost his intelligence. And although he's a religious man, he started spreading all kinds of irreligion. He was beginning irreligious bogus sampradayas just to somehow or other fulfill his aim. And Prithu Maharaj, his son, kept saving the scene, but Indra kept doing it again and again, and ultimately Prithu decided, I'm going to take this upon myself. And he was about to punish Indra. And Indra deserved the punishment. But then there was an intervention. Prithu Maharaj was told by a superior authority that let Indra have the record. Otherwise he's creating too much problem. So Prithu Maharaj he accepted it. And because he accepted it, he didn't do the yajna. Vishnu came. Vishnu was more pleased that he didn't do the yajna than if he did. Because not doing the yajna was a higher yajna than doing yajna. Because the purpose of yajna is to please Krishna. And ultimately Krishna wants cooperation. The Guru and Krishna would rather see the devotees cooperating. He's more pleased with you if you cooperate because it's creating a scene that's the best for everything and everyone. He's more pleased with that than if you excel. And in your attempt to excel and become famous and become great, that you create, you bring out the worst in others. You bring out a selfish, competitive environment where instead of trying to lift each other up, you're trying to push each other down. You're hoping the worst for each other. Or maybe not the worst, you're hoping not the best for each other. You may not be hoping that your competitor falls down and goes to hell, but you're hoping that he doesn't do as good as me. Very dangerous. This is a very powerful story. Krishna came down, and he didn't praise Indra, who had the record. He praised Prithu for not breaking the record. Because Prithu exhibited detachment. Prithu Maharaj exhibited focus on the higher principle of what pleases Krishna. And in this sense, what pleased Krishna was cooperation. Now, what we like to see in cooperation is both sides cooperate. Both sides take a humble position. Last night, this is on another level, we were at a program, and I was speaking to Radhe Shyam and Radhe Shyam in the presence of Radhe Shyam. And the older Radhe Shyams, they were saying that, the way they've got along so well is both of them are always trying to give all credit to the other one. One is saying, giving credit and glory to him, and he's giving credit to you, and it's mutual. There's no competition. Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shyam. That's the way there's love and unity. And they said about each other, he is more than a brother to me. I have so many brothers, but he is more than a brother to me. Now here in this particular story, cooperation is being challenged. Indra doesn't want to cooperate. He doesn't want to give he's willing to give any type of glory and respect to Prithu as long as it doesn't infringe on his superior position. And knowing that his superior position was inevitably going to be defeated, he started doing all sorts of sabotaging activities. But how was cooperation in this? Prithu Maharaj took the humble, detached position, even though Indra didn't. And it created a cooperative atmosphere. Indra has this ego. Okay, that's Krishna's business to lift Govardhan Hill later on and smash his ego. But it's not my business to smash his ego. And Prithu Maharaj is not taking the role of God. He's a Shaktivesh avatar. He's thinking of the whole picture. It's not good for him to make these aparads. It's not good for the world that all these religion is being spread. So, okay, let him have his egoistic position. I was going to punish him. I defeated him so many times, but he won't give up, so I'll take the humble position. For cooperation's sake. And Vishnu comes and glorifies, blesses, and empowers Prithu Maharaj. And he's quite ashamed of Indra, the great record holder. Now today, this is a long time after that, some millions of years, yes? When we think about it, now Indra, he was thinking, yes, I'm holding the title. Well, he still holds the title. But who do we love? Who do we honor and respect as the greater of the two? Prithu Maharaj. Because ultimately, it's character that makes a person great. It's not accomplishments. In Kali Yuga, accomplishments are considered what makes a man or woman great. In a cultured society, yes, accomplishments are respected and honored if they are done properly. But what actually invokes love and the respect of the heart? Accomplishments at the most can invoke some sort of respect. Sure. Let me just read this note. Okay. I have another appointment and I have to leave as soon as possible. A person's accomplishments induces respect and adoration from another person's mind. Doesn't go beyond that. But a person's character induces respect and love from other people's hearts. Character is all important. And that is very much the essence of this story. That Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami wants to teach this very strongly. Ultimately, Vishnu or Krishna is pleased with our character, not just with our accomplishments. We should try to accomplish the best we possibly can, but not at the cost of our character, or everything becomes empty spiritually in the eyes of God. So here's Prithu coming back to his kingdom, and what a grand celebration. The amazing thing, it's a grand celebration when he didn't do what he was going to do. They're welcoming him with such love and devotion. Vishnu was so happy with him. Vishnu was giving so many instructions to him. Now, this was going to be a preliminary introduction to the class, what I just said, because it's leading up to this verse and purport. But I just got this note that I have to leave. But I'll speak something. I wanted to speak very elaborately, but I'll speak something briefly on this particular purport of Srila Prabhupada. When Prithu Maharaj comes into the city, all the citizens, out of love, not just a formality, they're putting all kinds of auspicious articles everywhere. There's a whole list of the articles. They're spreading them in their houses and the streets. They're offering them to him just to invoke this auspiciousness. And one of the most auspicious ways that they welcomed the king is they had young virgin girls who were never touched by a man, beautifully decorated with ornaments, to come and greet him. And Srila Prabhupada writes in purport, even today in Hindu society, the most conservative families do not allow unmarried girls to go out freely or mix with boys. They are very carefully protected by their parents while unmarried. After marriage, they are protected by their young husbands. And when elderly, they are protected by their children. When thus protected, women as a class remain an always auspicious source of energy to man. what we find here in what Prabhupada calls Vedic civilization is a mood of respect. It's a mood of honoring. Amanina manadena. We offer all respect and honor to others and not expect for oneself. So, women in the Vedic civilization, as Prabhupada is explaining, they are protected with the spirit of honoring them and respecting them, not pushing them down to some sort of a lower class, not exploiting them. That's not the spirit. It's for the purpose of giving proper honor. And when that is done, then both the men and the women are peaceful, happy, and enlightened. But what happens is people take the form of a teaching without understanding its substance. The form is all important because we can't express the spirit of the substance without a form. And we cannot attain realization of the essence of that substance without practicing the form. So they are both integrally essential, the form and the spirit. If you have the spirit and you do not follow the proper forms, then the spirit becomes corrupted. And if you follow the form without understanding the spirit, then the form becomes corrupted. They're both very much interdependent. I'll repeat. If you follow the form without the spirit, the form is corrupted, and the spirit is corrupted. If you follow the spirit without the form, then the form and the spirit are both corrupted. So the form here is to protect the female class out of honor and respect. But what people have done all over the world, in India as well, is exploit that form. Exploit women. See them as an object of sense gratification. See them as an object of my own material enjoyment. See them as something inferior. Nothing wrong with beating them or just pushing them down. They're just an object, just a material object to be enjoyed. That is such an offense to God, to see His daughters as nothing more than an object for you to enjoy or to exploit. But that's what's happened. Just as the caste system has so much been degraded, the whole purpose of the caste system is every single citizen is protected, encouraged, becoming spiritually enlightened and happy. That's the whole purpose of Varnashram Dharma. But when exploitation comes in, I'm a Kshatriya, you're a Shudra. I'm better than you. Where is this amanina, manadena? Honor everyone and don't expect honor for oneself. So because the people who are born in the so-called lower castes have been exploited, have not been respected. Communism. They revolt. They want to take over. They want rights. The problem is not necessarily that the lower classes, in this sense, want rights and power. The problem is the higher didn't give them the honor and protection they needed. So this is the reaction. So today, because the male class in India too has misconceived the spirit of the Vedic civilization. So much exploitation of women. And the reality is, internationally, around the world, today, the greatest criticism of India is how men exploit women. How women are beaten down and just seen as objects of work and objects of sensual pleasure. Documentary after documentary, book after book is coming about all over the world about India. It's horrendous how people think the Indian culture is when they read these books. And the problem is all these documentaries and books are based on true stories. It's not propaganda. I know some of my God's brothers and God's sisters' children, they went to college and that's what they wanted to study, because they wanted to study sociology. A professor did their thesis, PhD thesis in Europe on the abuse of women in India with all sorts of documentation. Protecting women doesn't put them in a subordinate position in that sense. It's a way of honoring them. It's a way of respecting them. It's a way of preserving the integrity of their sacredness. And in doing so, men also protect their sacredness. If we don't honor each other, we're offending God. It's as simple as that. We see in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, there was such a culture. There wasn't free mixing, but everyone was happy not mixing, because it was done with honor and respect and integrity. But if you try to push people down and make them feel like there's something very inferior, then they're going to be dissatisfied, and the free mixing becomes, it's due to unsatisfied hearts. The sex drive is the most powerful single energy in creation. And the Vedic civilization teaches us how to deal with it, so we become enlightened rather than degraded. It's like fire. Fire, we need fire. We can't digest food unless we have the fire of digestion. Yes? We can't cook without fire. In the winter, in the Himalayas, where people are living in the snow, they can't survive without fire. Fire is very powerful. But it's only beneficial when it's under control. If you let fire do its own thing, if you let fire just be free, unrestricted, it's going to destroy you, your family, your home. I'm from Chicago. In the 1800s, there was the Great Chicago Fire. There's still remnants of that. Except for a water tower, it burned the entire city down to the ground. Single fire. And according to whether it's fact or legend, I'm not sure, but it's certainly symbolic. The fire started in a Goshala. There was a lady named Mrs. O'Leary, and she had a little lantern. You know what a lantern is? It's just a flame about this big that gives light in the dark. And she brought it to the Goshala and she put it down, and her cow kicked over the lantern and it went into the hay and it started a fire. And she wasn't there. She left. She wasn't there to put it out immediately. And it burned her barn, and it spread to the next barn, and then it burned her house, and then the next house, and the next house, and the next house, and it was flaming and soaring, and the flames were so high in the sky, and it burned down the second largest city in America. And I don't know how it is in Calcutta, but in any other city in the West at least, if you want to build a temple or if you want to build a building of any sort, there are such hard line technical rules that you have to have for fire protection. Only a certain amount of people could be in a particular area because of fire protection. You have to have certain particular types of electrical insulation. You have to have certain types of exits in particular places. Very serious. Because fire can happen anywhere at any time. And so many places burn down. If you go to the big cathedrals in Italy and other parts of Europe, and you read it's a beautiful, beautiful cathedral. But almost every one of them, when you read the history, it's like the third building of this cathedral because of fires. Massive, beautiful cathedrals. And over the centuries, it's just common that they burn down. Then they have to rebuild it. Then it burns down. Then they have to rebuild it. So here's fire. The reason it burns down is because you need it. You need it. But if it's not controlled properly, it's destructive. If it's controlled properly, it's beneficial. Pungsastriya mayutuni bhavametam. The basic principle of material existence is this attraction between male and female, the sex drive. We have to learn to honor it, because we can't get rid of it. We have to learn to honor it and respect it and control it properly. And this not mixing, it's not a question of discrimination or putting someone in an inferior position. It's a matter of honoring. As long as, to the degree we have sexual attraction for each other, we can't honor and respect each other. Why? Because our mood is to exploit, to enjoy, whether it's mentally or emotionally or physically. That's not respect. Service attitude is to give. So society is set up in such a way that people could actually learn to honor and respect each other. People could learn to control. The atmosphere is conducive to control this fire. And grihastas, they honor, the husband honors their wife, the wife honors the husband, and they serve together, and the husband protects the wife, and the wife assists the husband, and both are fully blissful, and they become God conscious when they put Krishna in the center. And for the brahmacharis and sannyasis, or those in the renounced order of life, they deal with that fire by, the fire's there. They deal with that fire by redirecting it, energizing it towards something else. It's an energy. Not giving in to allowing it to make you sensual. We chant our rounds intensely. We study Srimad Bhagavatam intensely. We discipline ourselves in such a way that we're not exposing ourselves to these temptations unnecessarily. We understand the principle. Nanvagni Brahmadanda, what's that verse Narada Muni says? Woman is like fire, man is like a pot of butter. Again, here it is, fire. If you put the two too close, the butter's going to melt. Even if it's frozen, even if you take butter and take it to the Arctic Ocean and put it right on the North Pole for 10 years, and it's hard as rock. If you put it near fire, it's just a matter of time till it melts. So we understand this principle. And we're very careful. Not in an egoistic way. One of the reasons why those in the renounced order keep such sanctified distances is so that we can amanina manadena, so we can honor all living beings and not think in terms of exploitation and enjoyment. We see every woman as your mother. You don't want to exploit your mother. You honor your mother. Every woman except wife, a man should honor like mother. And this Vedic civilization is set up to monitor and control that fire energy that's so powerful in this world in such a way that we could actually honor each other. And we won't be burnt. We won't be scorched or consumed. And you see, when one person allows that fire to be unrestricted in his or her heart, not only does it burn their spiritual lives, but it can create massive social destruction. So these forms of rules are not something old-fashioned. We are talking about a science, a spiritual science that's actually the most modern of all things. Why? Because it's eternal. If something's eternal, that means it's older than the oldest, and it's also more modern than anything modern. Because it's a principle. It's a principle of honoring, respect all living beings. And how to do that. It's a principle of taking this very, very powerful energy, which is like fire, the sexual impulse, and monitoring it and controlling it according to our particular ashram in such a way that it's beneficial. Krishna says if you have sex according to religious principles and bring beautiful children into this world on behalf of God, Krishna says, I am that sex. Sacred. For one in the renounced order, to restrict it, to monitor it, to say no, and to keep their mind and their body so very, very engrossed in spiritual activities that fire cannot harm anyone. Rather, it's transformed into detachment and devotional service. Transformation. Renunciates are meant to transform that energy into something very positive and pure. And grihastas are also meant to transform that energy into something very pure. That's an eternal principle. And it's a basis of every religion in the world if we look back to the origins. It's not something old-fashioned. The Vedic civilization have developed it in such a philosophical, scientific way because it's all explained so thoroughly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. And this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. So we've discussed today the fire. In Indra's case, it was the fire of false ego. Of course, in other stories, the other fire was also getting him, burning him a lot too. That's why he has all those eyes on his body. Because that either fire, either the gross fire of sexual desires or the subtle fire of adoration, distinction, pratishta, kamini pratishta, very, very dangerous unless handled very properly. Wealth, sexual urges, and distinction. These are the three things we have to keep very, very monitored and controlled if we want to make advancement and give a positive input to society. It's very important. So here we have Indra. That fire of pratishta, that fire of subtle sex, the desire for honor and distinction, caused him to do crazy things. I mean, he was going crazy. He was dressing up as all these sadhus to steal the horse, and he stole the horse, and then he's chased, and then he's one kind of sadhu, and then he's another kind of sadhu, and he's somehow or other trying to save himself. The fire of ego, pratishta, was just out of control. And because Prithu Maharaj, fire of ego, humility and service is the only way to deal with it. He said, let Indra be the champion. This is what my superior is telling me. And now, because he's done that, he's the champion of character. And everyone loves him. Because he gave up something that he could have had for a higher principle. It's detachment. And as far as that gross fire, we've discussed how that could make a person crazy too, to act in so many ways to spread irreligion. So material world, samsara davanalita loka, it's a blazing fire. It's a blazing forest fire, material existence. And we're discussing today some of the forms of this fire. When we talk about the material world as a blazing forest fire, it doesn't mean that the whole world's just on fire, like, this kind of fire. Because we see why it says the whole world's on fire. I don't see fire here, I don't see fire here. The fire's here. Samsara Davalina Loka means the fire within the heart. The fire for pratishta. The fire for sex life. Kamini. That's the blazing fire. And the spiritual master teaches us, brahmacharis, this is the way you do it. Grihastas, this is the way you do it. But the Guru comes with the rain of his instructions and the rain of the divine grace of Krishna to put out these fires. It begins by learning how to deal with them in a constructive, positive way. Putting out the fire means transforming it into pure spiritual energy by chanting the holy name. I must go, I'm sorry. I should go before Radhesham Prabhu raises his hand. Haribo. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.